From MLU headquarters in Philadelphia, this is Cleats and Cufflinks.
Welcome back to, welcome to Cleats and Cufflinks. It is episode 33 here today, so we're at 33. Big year for musician deaths, I think. Is that right? We were talking about that earlier.
Not a year you want to be.
Not a year you want to be. I'm well past it. You're well
below.
Before it. I guess would be accurate. So not a big deal to either of us at the moment, but a good episode number, I think. So I'm here today. I have Tim Brubaker. I did it wrong. So we were talking about this earlier, and you've never gotten Brubaker as a mistake. It's Brubaker. Brubaker.
Yeah, Brubaker.
But not Brubaker.
No.
Not Brubaker.
Just kind of flatline throughout.
Brubaker. Okay,
Yeah.
Tim Brubaker, who is a consultant for us, is what we're going to call you. That's what we've been calling you anyway. Statistics and development. So stats and web development. That'd be accurate, I guess, to cover what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, working with stats, working with developing the site, so.
And what was you had another title that you were angling for earlier today when we were talking. A guy who does stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
It's not bad. We could use that. So we're going to talk today about a bunch of different stuff. But first, a little bit of background on Tim. That's what we're going to start with. A little bit of background. So one of the sort of core things in your life that we hear probably the most about around the office, particularly since you're now here every day with us, having just graduated from school actually, and but the thing we hear probably most about is Slovakia.
I'm pretty proud of being Slovak. I don't know if there's really a good reason for it. I am Slovak in heritage, so I mean that's the base reason. But just as a kid, it seemed like not a lot of people were Slovak, and that seemed cool to me. So I decided to let everyone know repeatedly that I am Slovak.
Just grabbed onto it.
Yeah, it was just the identity I could use. We end up talking because of this about Slovakian traditions, about Slovakian food. Tell us. So there's this candle tradition. Can you give me a rundown of? And again, this is we like to be educational here on Cleats and Cufflinks, multicultural, bring in some other elements outside of frisbee. So just bear with us here, but a Slovakian candle tradition. It's our biggest. I mean, biggest that we celebrate, at least in my house. It's Christmas Eve. We have the old man candle, which is literally the candle holster is the body and face of an old man, and we have our candle that we put in it.
Like, are we talking like a Santa Clausy old man, or like a?
He looks like Santa Claus. I mean, definitely old man. Yes, big beard, flowy hair. I don't know. There's a bunch of detail besides his face, but you can tell it's a dude.
Okay.
And everybody lights it, and you pass it around, and everybody gets to blow it out. So the smoke that comes after you blow it out is how good you were the previous year.
So what signifies a good, like the amount of smoke?
Sure. Well, amount of smoke, I mean, sometimes it's like a hazy reading on an 8-ball. Amount of smoke doesn't matter too much, just however straight it is. You blow it out, and it just, whoop, then it's like, wow, and you get applause.
So if it goes straight up, then you've been good that year.
Yeah, and the more kind of angled and sideways it is, the worse. So, I mean, you have to look at the beginning, because everyone goes up eventually, But
if you're sitting beneath the fan, you've probably had a bad year.
We've tried all the tricks. The candle always knows. So,
candle always knows.
Yeah, you can't get away with tricks. It'll
we may
do
be
it
instituting this in the office. I'm going to come in. There's going to be a mess. I'm like, who left this? We'll do the candle trick, and we'll see who did it. I like it. All right, Slovakian candle trick. And you've also brought in some Slovak food for us. What was the thing we had just a little bit ago?
Those were kolache, the cookies.
Yeah, kolache.
Yeah, that's pretty much just cream cheese. You roll it in a little bit of sugar. We usually put apricot in the middle and roll it up and cook it, and it's delicious.
They're absolutely delicious. Get yourself some kolache if you're out there. So again, see, this is what we do here. We got sort of multicultural, like bringing in other cultures. We have a little bit of a cooking show element. But really, of course, why we're here is to get into a little bit of Ultimate, right? So in terms of Ultimate, like when did you start playing?
When I went to college. I didn't really know it was a thing before that. I guess I was kind of lucky. One of my first days, there were banks set up outside the union trying to get you to make an account. And I didn't, but one of them handed me just a small plastic frisbee. And a friend of mine
wanted to throw with me, so we just happened to be throwing as the then president of the Ultimate Frisbee Club was walking by and was like, hey, you guys should come to tryouts. And I said, sure, and then started playing, and seemed great. I loved playing it, so stuck with it.
So you played for 4 years in college. Where did you go to school?
LaSalle University.
LaSalle University. And you said that it's a relatively new team there at LaSalle, right? Like a relatively small team
Yes,
at the moment.
so the captain that I mentioned earlier, Alex Jones, he was the creator. I mean, with a few people, but that was like the first year.
Oh, wow.
Not, my first year wasn't the first, but he was the first year.
So they've only been around then maybe, 6 or 7 years, something like that?
Yeah,
So relatively new program, LaSalle. Shout out to LaSalle Ultimate. Keep it going, guys. And so on the field, what's your position? What'd you play?
Well, I started out just as a receiver, but
As most of us do.
yeah, Oklahoma and Alicia, they were our captains and were great throwers. I didn't have to worry about that. And then both graduated the same year. So then, as I guess happens to a lot of people, I was kind of thrust into the handler role.
So Oklahoma, by the way, true name? So,
Same person that helps us. Amanda Kalk. Sorry.
Amanda Kalk, there you go. So Amanda, big help building the fantasy application that we built last year, has been very involved in the stats and website side of things for us.
Yeah.
So shout out to her, we like her. I don't know the other person, so, sure, she's fine.
Yeah, she's a beast.
So I stepped up into some more throwing roles later on. And then, so how did you find us?
I believe I just kind of saw on Facebook that you guys were looking for people in various positions. So I got in contact. I believe it was Tom that I talked to first. And, set it up, talked to you guys. You brought me in. We sat down and talked. And I guess you guys liked me enough to ask me to come back.
And here we are. And so a lot of what you've done over the past, how long has it been now? It's been close to 2 years?
Yeah, well, it was spring break 2 years ago that I started, so.
Oh, wow. Yeah, all right, so almost there. And basically since then you've been doing a lot of the statistics stuff for the most part, correct? Yeah. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was you wrote an article recently. Now Tom's giving you a little bit of a hard time about your articles. What was the one that was 2,000 words and 3,000 numbers?
Well, I feel like the numbers, they say a lot more than words because, numbers know what they say. But that was all about players who play split time on O-line and D-line and defining that, seeing what it means. So it got a little heavy.
Got a little bit heavy.
Yeah.
That was a cool article, though. Basically, you were talking about players that have sort of even participation on points where their team starts on offense and points where their team starts on defense, right?
Yeah, proficient on both sides.
Yeah, that cool article. But that's not the one I want to talk about. You wrote one about that was looking at fouls and infractions and yardage penalties and that kind of thing. And originally actually didn't start there, though. You started with what?
No, well, it was originally going to be entitled Overstepping the Yard Line. And it's kind of a unique scenario to our game because of the rules and how we, talk about fouls. But what would happen is there would be an infraction on a defensive player, like marking an offensive player. So they would be able to gain 10 yards on the field. But what I saw some players doing was taking 12, 13 yards in this occasion. And when the refs were wise to this, they blow the whistle, they'd lose those 10 yards again. So it was really, wasting the
Because that would be
opportunity
a delay of game for
Yeah.
starting the disc in the wrong position.
Yeah.
And the officials are always pointing to the spot where you're supposed to be.
Yeah,
right?
they're pretty good. If you're looking, they mark out your 10 yards and say, this is where you're going. But the players don't always go there.
So you basically negate the whole foul call.
Yeah.
In that instance. But of course, you started there, but we ended up talking more about fouls in a larger sense, which I think is interesting because the way that our game works with these yardage penalties and the way that affects how teams approach the game is kind of important. So statistically, we have 3 different sort of categories of fouls, correct?
Yeah, in the article I broke it down between like no movement fouls, positive movement fouls, and negative movement fouls.
And so what does that mean?
So when you think about a no movement foul, 99% of these are stalls and travels. So it just kind of spot turnovers, like disc is going the other way now.
So it's not a yardage penalty, but there is a penalty. The penalty is that it's a turnover.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the 1% that isn't a stall or a travel was actually a downfield foul, but it was a swing, so it was worth 0 yards. So
Downfield foul. Oh, I see what you're saying. So it was a spot foul
that
on a swing
happened to be
pass
worth 0.
worth
So,
0 yards.
Yeah.
So
So then we have our negative movement. These are mostly on the offense, and these are again things like hitting into people when you're not allowed to, picks downfield, all of that. So it's the offense trying to gain an advantage over the defense. This moves them back yardage. It's almost completely 10 yards lost when you do this. The one event that they're not is that, kind of half the distance to the goal.
right. If you're within the 10-yard period, you go halfway back. Yep.
Yeah, and then the events that these are in the defense is usually between points. So delay of games or offsides in the pool. That's kind of the time when the defense can lose yardage.
Gotcha. And then positive.
Yeah, which is by far the biggest. It's downfield fouls and marking fouls are above 50% of all the fouls that are committed. And obviously, because of that, take up the most yardage. When you think about downfield fouls, they could technically be worth 79 yards because it's a spot foul.
Right.
So if I'm
sort
at
of our
my-
pass interference, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which can certainly change the momentum of a game. I think DC Boston like week 2 last season, things like that. So that's why it takes up so much larger chunks of yardage.
So we're basically saying that. So our big you're talking about how much effect fouls have in terms of the yardage implication. So if we're looking at the total pie from 2015, so what was the total amount of yardage fouls that we had in 2015?
It was over 5,400 yards just from fouls.
And you're saying that 50% of those yards in that effect were from marking fouls and
Downfield fouls. Yeah.
And which is bigger?
I believe downfield.
Downfield had a little more effect.
Just
it probably
because
comes to
such large
because of
chunks.
those large chunks.
Yeah.
And pass interference in our league is very much like pass interference in football, right? It's basically if the disc is in the air and there's contact, then we give
the player will
receiver
get the
the
disc
disc where
at the contact.
they would have caught it, or at the point of contact.
Mm-hmm.
Is it at the point of contact, or is it where they're catching it? Like, what if they get interfered with, 20 yards downfield, but the disc lands 40 yards downfield? They get it
I
at the
think
point of
it's
the
still
foul?
believe. Yeah, it's the point of the foul.
Point of the foul.
Because you might have caught it 10 feet shorter than it would have landed onto the ground. So had it gone past you.
So what kind of conclusions are you drawing from this understanding? Like, what kind of
Well, with this article, I definitely just wanted to say hey, this isn't a small thing. I mean, 5,000 yards, that's a lot of yardage, especially when you're considering it's an 80-yard field. So fouls are a thing. They can really hurt your team if you do it at the wrong time. But we talked a little of delving kind of further into this to see if we could break it down by team, kind of see what does it mean if you're fouling, the real implications of I foul more often than you foul. Do I win more? Do I lose more? Do I score more?
Yeah, it would be very interesting, I think, to answer some additional questions there. Like, what is the correlation between yardage fouls and success rates, like offensive efficiency, right?
Yeah.
Or vice versa, or defensive efficiency. Like, what are the kind of correlations? So, are we expecting another article on this? Are we going to dig into this further?
I'm absolutely hoping to do that.
Excellent. So we'll look for that. I think that this is always going to be an ongoing conversation. And I think one of the things that I'm most interested in is what is the impact of a yardage foul versus some of the other methodologies of dealing with fouls. And we've had talks about this with the rules committee. We've had talks about this with outside observers of our game, and comparing it to other sports, comparing it to other forms of ultimate. And I think it's actually really interesting to talk about, like, how much of an advantage is a yardage gain, or how much of a disadvantage is a yardage loss in ultimate? And does that vary in advantage based on what point of the field on? I mean, you said that one thing, if you're 5 yards out and you get fouled, you're only moving 5 yards forward now.
Yeah.
And is it a big difference to a team to be on the goal line or to be 5 yards off of the goal line? What do you think?
Definitely, I mean, when you get towards the middle of the field, besides getting those large chunk downfield fouls, they all just kind of, you play your game still, but as you get closer to either end zone, backwards or forwards, it definitely means a lot. If you could think, I call a timeout, I got my half field pull and pin you down there and run up and marking foul you, now you're out of the end zone.
That is definitely a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, you've wasted the timeout. You wasted the chance to get a Callahan. Really change the momentum of the game.
That's actually a very good point. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I'm really interested from a rules perspective on seeing your kind of overall analysis of this as we go on. If we can get a better understanding of the impact of of fouls on game results, or even of fouls on point results, I think we have enough data now. We have 3 years of data to pull this out of.
Data's there.
It should actually give us an idea of whether or not they're having the effect that we want them to have. And there's other opportunities out there. There's other options, and I'm curious as to what people out there think. And they can obviously let us know at Cleats Cufflinks, at Nick Darling,
At Timbo MLU.
Timbo MLU, Timbo
B-O.
MLU. On Twitter, you can send us an email, cleatsandcufflinks@mlultimate.com. But I would love to see, looking at other sports, one of the things that I've often thought about is, could we adopt something from what lacrosse and rugby do? They have this rule, and I'm not as familiar with those sports as I should be, but from what I understand, there's a rule that will back the defender off rather than give somebody yardage. So, say there's a marking foul. Rather than give the offense 10 yards on that marking foul, which they may just give right back with a dump, actually moving the marker, the defender, off the mark 10 yards and allowing for essentially what is a free throw, which seems like a significantly bigger advantage.
Yeah, it would certainly change the dynamic. I mean, it's basically you can get a free breakthrow off if you're paying attention on that situation.
Yeah.
Which, obviously you get the breakthrow off, you get everything open up that lane. And the other one we talked about at the end zone, where it might be an advantage to foul, but if you're moving off, then it's a disadvantage.
Exactly. Yeah, it takes care of some little loopholes in the rules in terms of advantages. And I mean, let's be honest. We're talking about semantics in a lot of ways. These are not things that to date have been a big problem. And of course, for the most part, players are playing with respect and playing by the rules. But if you have those scenarios come up, we also have flagrant fouls to deal with, and we have bans to deal with them for players that choose to step outside of those rules. But at the same time, it feels like from an interpretation of the game of Ultimate, is Ultimate a yardage game like football is? Does the gaining or losing of territory matter as much, or is it a fluid game like soccer is? And I think it's probably somewhere in between.
Yeah, I'd probably, you didn't say this term exactly, but possession is kind of the big thing.
Possession, yeah.
Learning the game, it was always said, as long as you have the disc, they can't score. So wherever you are on the field, as long as you have the disc, you're kind of in control.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. Excellent. Well, like I said, I look forward to seeing more of that, and I also look forward to comments and questions on this, because I think it's actually an interesting thing about the game. What are the, we've introduced a way of thinking about this, a way of understanding it. We're talking statistically about how the yardage penalties affect things, but maybe there are other ways to understand it, and it would be interesting to have that conversation, I think. All right, so let's move on, though. We're going to move on. We're going to run out of time. Producer Dave back there behind the cameras is going to yell at us if we run out, so we'll move on. Big project right now. The big thing that's happening, the big thing that everybody should be looking at today as they listen to this, is the new website. So we're rolling out an update to the MLU site to start, and that update will later, as we move forward, be applied to the team sites as well. But we're applying this update to the MLU site, and you've had a significant role in this. Can you explain a little bit about what your role's been in what we're doing?
Sure. So it's kind of been, most of what I'm doing, the process is Luke, me, Scott. So Luke
Ryan.
Yes, Luke Ryan. He's our head statistician, and in the back end, setting up all of our functions through our database and getting them to me. So with the help of Amanda Koch again, we've been able to get these online to just kind of create the data where we don't have to worry about it. It creates itself on the web pages. So that's mainly what I've been doing. And then Scott styles it up, makes it look real pretty, makes sure everything runs properly. But really just taking our stats and putting them on the website as easily digestible and as numerously as possible.
Yeah, and it also, we're taking all the work out of it essentially from the entry end, because once we put it in the database, the functions that Luke's creating deal with outputting the stats we need. Your language deals with translating those for a website, right?
Yeah.
And then Scott makes them look nice. Scott Hell makes them look nice.
So we build the skeleton of a page and then just let the numbers fill them in.
Yeah, so we get these dynamic web pages rather than static ones, where they're affected by the database. And one of the things we've talked a lot about, which you've been part of too, is how much more can we build into this? I mean, we're already working on a platform, WordPress, which is dynamic and is pulling our posts and things from a database. How much more can we add to our database in terms of player information? Because we have a lot, right?
Yeah,
we can tell you,
there's a ton.
What hand a player throws with, height, weight, what college he went to, what high school he went to. Pretty detailed information going all the way back, and in addition to this sort of vast array of statistics that we have available. And so figuring out how to incorporate more information into our database and more stuff we can display is, I think, a big part of what we're doing. Images, right?
Yeah, we have everything hooked up with our WordPress site to display every image we need, depending on the team, the player, all that.
You've also managed, which I thought was really cool, you've managed to, from the box scores and from the score things, been able to connect to the game recaps through our database, so that we have game recaps getting published by authors that are now in our database and getting attached to the games in our statistical side of things. I mean, it's very cool stuff.
I think that's probably what makes me most excited about it. It's just, you can kind of keep going now. Like, there's no dead ends. Whatever page you click in, we've got more stats for you from that page.
Yeah, we talk about it as like the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
We have stats for players, we have stats for games, we have stats for teams, and they're all kind of interlinked together in a way that you could spend the whole time just bouncing around that site and finding new pages to look at, new players to understand, new numbers to understand.
And hopefully do. We've added about 5 new stats, technically like brand new stats, but with each stat, we've also now got it broken down by week to week, 4 different categories, then by season, then by career, and averages for all of those as well.
I forgot about that. That's actually really cool too. So we have full stats from 2013, 2014, 2015, and so we can actually look at a player's career, and later we're going to be able to take those stats and turn them into things like our record book, our milestones, all the kinds of stuff that we see every league in the world do, all the stuff that people want to keep track of, so that we'll know whether we're watching a game on TV, the announcers will know, or watching it on the live stream, and the announcers will be able to tell us, or whether we're keeping track of it at home, we can see that, oh, hey, this player's about to break the blocks record for a season, and we know that it's close because those statistics are dynamically updating and live right in front of us.
That's really the important part. I mean, the base stats were in our database, we interpreted them, and now we've got them out there so all of you can interpret them. I mean, that's exciting.
It is exciting. I'm excited for other people to start digging in and getting their hands on them and drawing some conclusions from them too. That'll be really cool. And we have some new statistics, as you mentioned, which I thought was cool. One is we've added hockey assists.
Yes.
Which I know you are a hockey fan.
Yes.
What's your team?
And the Flyers.
I'm trying to plug them for you.
Philadelphia Flyers.
There you go. And how are they this year?
They're on the bubble.
On the bubble.
But on the rise on the bubble.
A rising bubble.
Yeah.
A rising bubble. The problem with rising bubbles.
The pop.
That's what happens.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. So Flyers fan, and so I know that when we added this stat, you were pretty excited. So explain for anyone out there who may not know what a hockey assist is and why we care about it.
Right. So the assist, obviously, I throw it to you, you score a goal, I've got the assist. But the hockey assist is you threw it to me, who threw it for the goal, so you would get the hockey assist. So it's basically the pass to the person who threw the goal.
And why does hockey have this? Because this is obviously, it has that name. It's from hockey. Why do they have it?
I think it's just, it's 5 people on the ice, and so often defensemen have the kind of the breakout pass that really gets it going. You get a 2-on-1, and that's all started by the defenseman getting that nice pass. So it's kind of a way to just reward, maybe you didn't get that one-timer pass off, but you're the one that set up the play.
So yeah, you're basically saying that and we have this in Ultimate, right? We have the big huck that doesn't quite make it to the end zone, or the break throw across that doesn't quite get to the end zone but opens everything up.
Exactly.
And we want to be able to reward that beautiful break throw in the same way that we're rewarding the short toss that goes into the end zone.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Very cool. And then another one that I like that I thought was cool is that when we're looking at turnovers, right? Turnovers have this big breakdown. You got, all the various ways that you can turn the disc over. One of them is throws into blocks, which is something that, I'd never really seen tracked exactly before. Like, we've seen throwaways or drops, but actually understanding that a player has, if they have a lot of throws into blocks, they maybe not be seeing the defense properly, they may be seeing the cutters, and we can start to understand something about a certain thrower's vulnerabilities, perhaps, or maybe just their tendencies to throw maybe riskier throws into traffic situations.
Yeah, it's definitely one, just like you're saying, it's taking the situation and saying, okay, let me see what's going on. We have I think the record is 20 throws into blocks in a season,
Whoa.
Which isn't one you necessarily want to be on. But if you look at the two players, because it's a tie, one has 400 throws in the season and one has 100 throws in the season. So you're thinking that person with 100 throws and 20 throws into blocks.
That's not a great percentage
No.
of your throws going into blocks. So that's why we have the percentage breakdowns in a lot of categories too. Not necessarily for this one, but in a lot of categories we build those percentages for you. 20% of your throws into blocks. Let's not say that player's name. We'll let people find
28
him.
assists though.
28
that same
assists.
season, yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right, well, we'll see if somebody can find that and call him out for us. We won't call that person out right here, but 28 assists is good. All right. So, there's so much to dig into with this new site, so much to look at. I'm incredibly excited for it to come out and for people to start playing around with it and getting it. There's also cool, I like the other stuff too. I think the way it displays articles is nicer. I think a lot of what we can do with our homepage
Site
is
itself.
nicer. And then it also integrates stats throughout. So we have, if we're going to look at the schedule, there's links through to old games. You can look at last year's schedule, get to box scores, all that stuff, and then also buy tickets and do all the other things that you need to do. So I'm excited about it, and I hope everybody's enjoying it right now. And I'm sure we're going to get a lot of feedback, and we're certainly going to have to work with some bugs and stuff as we go on. But we'll get it all together. So the very last thing I want to talk about, we are right now looking for stats keepers for the upcoming season. So those posts are going up, and we're going to be hiring people to come do statistics at games. It's a paid job. You come out, you record statistics, live statistics, which is what we can do now, and have a good time enjoying the game. So can you tell us, you've done this work, what does the basic setup look like?
Well, generally, at a game we have 3 stat keepers. So we have a laptop, have it set up with Google Sheets, and what will usually happen is one person will be in charge of kind of typing in action by action, like this person throws to this person, it's a block, now they throw it, kind of like that.
What does a normal call sound like?
Basically, you just hear spelling out numbers. 33, 56, and that just kind of means throwing between them, and we have to kind of say, in particular, if something else happens.
Gotcha.
But then the other 2 people are dealing with the lines of each team, making sure they're in, so we know points played, all of that, and just kind of watch the game. It's a lot of fun. You still watch the entire game, which is, such a benefit because you're working and watching.
Get free tickets,
Yeah, yeah. It's really a good thing to do. I have fun every time.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think it's a great opportunity to be involved with a cool team too. I think the stats team is doing some of the most innovative work that we are doing right here in the MLU now, and I think it's a good opportunity for people to be involved in that. So hopefully we'll get some good applicants for that. If you want to apply for a statistics position with the league, you can send a resume and a little note to us at work@mlultimate.com, and we'll let Tim review your resume and make sure you're qualified to go out there and do what we're doing. Does it help to like numbers? You can get this. It's a pretty good process, right?
Yeah, we've definitely streamlined it as much as we can, but the more you love numbers, the more you'll enjoy it. So,
amen. All right, well, hey, it was great having you on the show today, Tim. We've run out of time, but I think we did a nice job pacing ourselves, so not getting too tied up. If you have any questions for Tim, you can get him at TimboMLU on Twitter. You can also get me at Nick Darling on Twitter. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Cleats and Cufflinks.